Hello. Today's discussion, I'm going to be talking about Kantianism and virtue ethics, and I'm going to briefly summarize what these approaches and studies of ethics, because I quickly want to get to my topic of discussion. So, Kantianism was a concept that was kind of developed by Immanuel Kant, who was a major influencer in all the corners of philosophy, mostly ethics. And this is just basically, um, it boils down to two rules. Okay, rule number one: do things that you will rationally endorse everyone else to do in a similar circumstance. And rule number two: always treat others with respect and never a tool. Just to kind of get through this quickly, the second aspect of this is virtual ethics, which pretty much deals with you as an individual. Virtual ethics essentially tells us that good behavior tends to lead to happier and more fulfilling life, while vice or bad behavior tend to lead to a dissatisfied life. A virtue ethics can seem a little bit vague because even though an act can be considered uh, good or brave, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the most moral action. In other words, according to the text, wisdom is our greatest virtue because that's what allows us to draw the line between going too far or not going far enough. Okay, so to kind of piggyback on my topic that I wanted to kind of discuss within this topic is abortion. Abortion is something that's been debated over a period of time, and I think that if we look at this, if we strip away all the religious teachings and just kind of look at abortion as a whole as an ethical issue, um, whether to decide if it's ethical or immoral to do so, following Kant's rule that says do things you would want everyone else to do in the same circumstance as you. Then it gets into the reason why you're choosing to abort. But then you also violate that because it also says respect others and not use them as a mere tool. So if someone is looking to abort a child, then you can assume that if you first define that child as a being that has feelings and that can reason, then essentially you are violating this rule. You're not respecting the interests of the child. And again, we're also assuming that one of the interests of the child is to be born. And some people argue whether late term abortion is worse than, maybe the earlier stages. But in my opinion, it's both is essentially doing the same thing. You're not looking at, you're not really, you're considering your personal interest in the moment and you're feeling like that decision might serve you the best. Whether it's you're not financially ready for a child or you're in school or, you just maybe the child came out of an unwanted act such as rape or sexual assault. Um, Even though you have the right to do that and you have the right to consider all of your interest, you have to also, if you agree that the child, the unborn child, is considered a being, then by you aborting, you're not taking into account their interest, and that's the direct violation of Kantianism. In other words, you don't have respect for the unborn child. Now, if we look at this from a virtual ethics perspective, it's a little bit different because virtual ethics has more to do with you as an individual and the rules, the way that you develop your character. You can also find that um, this also violates a certain aspect of this because greed and those type of vices are centered around you thinking about just yourself. In other words, you have to be a selfish person to make decisions that only account for your interest. So, regardless of how you slice the pie, abortion is immoral and it's not justifiable for any reason because you're not taking into account the interest of the baby and its willingness to want to live and want to be born. It's a little bit vague. It's a little bit tough to kind of, you know, compare both things. But I think that from my understanding, even it's changing my perspective, if we're going to apply these theories, it constitutes for a violation of Kantianism. Um, that is pretty much it for today's discussion. I really enjoyed this text. It's very interesting to kind of learn and change your mind as you read. Thank you.